Hello and welcome to my studio. In this video I'm going to show you how I made this picture. Having the right environment for the subject can be almost as important as the subject itself. In this picture the background was made up to suit the subject and lit accordingly. The lighting for the foreground is soft and graduated to enhance the overall effect. And in this video I'm going to show you exactly how I did it. Okay. So what I've got here is the subject. So I've arranged these items on this fairly rustic piece of wood so that it all sort of blends in with the sort of theme that I'm trying to create here. Now in the original picture you would have seen that the background was just not a straight background, it had some items in it. And what I've actually done is just built all that out of some pieces of wood. So I've got some old offcuts of wood which I found outside, and basically what I'm going to do is just arrange these to make an interesting background. So basically just placing them on like this. Something like that anyway. There we go. And then for the actual background itself, I'm just going to use a roll of grey background paper. So this is a roll of grey background paper, so I'll just wheel that into position. There, something like that. So with those parts now in position, I can set up the camera. Now the camera that I'm using is this full frame digital SLR with a 24-70 zoom lens on the front of it and a flash sync trigger on the top. Now the camera is tethered into Capture One software, so it's easy to follow along and see the results as we get them. Okay, so if I just pop this on this tripod and we'll line the shot up. So the first thing I'll do is just focus that up a little, like that. Then I'll zoom that in to about there. I'm just trying to fill the background with the image. There we go. Good. Right, so with that now done, what I will do is turn the camera on, like so. And the software has recognised the camera. And these are the settings that I have on the camera at the moment. So it's in full manual mode, 1/250th of a second for the shutter speed, which is the flash sync speed for that camera, ISO 100, and an aperture of f8. So with those settings, what I'll do is capture an image with no flash, just to make sure we're not getting any contamination from the house lights. Okay. There we go, so that's virtually blank. There's a few highlights, but nothing to speak of, which is what we want. So that means that all the light that I now add with flash is going to be the only light which affects the image. Okay, so first thing to do would be to illuminate the background and get the background lit properly. So to do that, what I'm going to do is place a 1 foot by 4 foot softbox right up here at the very top, just illuminating this part of the background. There we are. Now, being quite close to the background as it is, it's not going to need a great deal of energy. I'm using a 250 joule flash head up here, so it's not that powerful. So we'll see how we go for exposure. So that's going to be the first light that I set. Now also, in order to make this a yellowy orange colour, what I've done is I've attached a filter on the inside of this softbox, just across the surface of the light. So I only need a small filter to have a large effect. Okay, so with all that in position, what I can do is select that head from the remote here and turn it on, like so. And just at an arbitrary energy level, I'm going to give that a try. Okay, so we can see the beginnings of something there. We've got a little bit of a glow along the top. I think I need a little more energy in that. So I'm just going to add 1 stop of energy to that just to see what happens. Okay, let's grab that again. There we are, that's getting there. That's probably good enough for the time being. So you should also be able to make out that there's a very slight mottled effect across the whole of the background there. Now that is caused by the actual background paper. Background paper tends to not be very flat. So if you light it very obliquely, like I've done here, you can end up with a mottled effect, which sometimes works and sometimes doesn't. For this particular shot, I think it should work quite well. Okay, so that's that bit lit. For the time being anyway. So the next thing to do is to light the main subject. Now for this, what I'm going to do is place a softbox about here somewhere. So here I have a Profoto B1X with a 1 foot by 4 foot softbox on the front of it. So I'm just going to place that up in the air a little, like so. And we'll just place this about here. Maybe make that a little lower. Something like that, just so it's touching the table. There we are. Okay, so the idea of this softbox is that it's going to light the edge of the bottle, so it's going to create a little highlight. It'll create a highlight in the glass as well, and on the shiny parts of the corkscrew down there. Right, so to set that up, I will just turn that one on from the remote here, like so. And again, just at an arbitrary energy level, I'll just grab an image and we'll set the exposure accordingly. Right, so we can see from that exposure that it is a little underexposed. I think I probably need possibly another 3 stops. Let's try adding 3 stops of energy to that light. There we go. So we'll grab that again. So that's much better as an exposure. It's possibly a little over, just on this edge here, but that we will address shortly. The other thing is that the background here has become contaminated from this light. I go to the underexposed one, you can see that this is quite a saturated colour, whereas here it's all turned a little wishy-washy. Now that is caused by light from here leaking onto the background there. So if I just temporarily turn off the background light itself, so we'll just turn that one off, so only this one will fire. I'll just grab an image. There you go. And you can see that this is fairly well lit as a grey. So we need to stop that happening, and the way to do that is just to flag this off. So again, what I have here on a stand is just a cloth flag, and all I'm going to do is just place this in the way here, just something like that. Okay, so if I've got that in the right place, it shouldn't be in the picture. There we go. We'll grab an image and see what we get now. There, that's much better. Perhaps a little bit of fine-tuning over this side is required, but the background now has gone very dark. This is what we had before, and this is what we've got now. Okay. So with all that now done, the next thing to do is just to soften all this down a little. In the original picture, this was a very graduated, very soft light. So in order to do that, what I'm going to do is place some diffusion material just along here, so that this is acting through the diffusion material, and it should create quite a nice gradient across the surface of the bottle. Here we are then. So this is a roll of 216 diffusion material from Lee filters, but you can use virtually any type of translucent material for this. So what I'll do is just put this in the air a bit. So we'll take this quite high. I want to get it as high as the softbox behind it as a minimum, really. So up there somewhere like that. And I'll just pull this down. There we are. With all these things, there is a little bit of fine control just to get it in the right place. I want to get it just out of view. So we'll just give it a try like that. There we are. That seems to have worked quite well. You can see that you've got quite a nice graduation across the surface of the bottle and on the glass. So this is what we had before, and this is what we've got now. And also the material here will take out some of the energy from the flash. So I don't need to reduce the exposure there. I think that has worked quite well as it is. Okay, so I can now turn back on the flash for the background, and we'll fire them both together. So with both flashes now firing, this is the overall image that I've ended up with, which I'm quite pleased with. The diffusion material has made quite a nice graduation across the surface of the bottle here, and overall I think the exposure is about right. Okay, so with that now captured, it just remains to go into Photoshop and do the very bare minimum of post-production just to finish off the image. So here we are in Photoshop, and I've loaded up the file of the image that we captured earlier. So first thing to do would be just to make a copy of that. So again, I'll just go on to the background layer here and right click the mouse and just ask for a duplicate layer. But I want a new document. And we'll just call this Still Life. There we go. Click on OK. Photoshop has now made me a copy of that file. So I can now just dispense with the camera original. So this is the file that I'll be editing. Okay. Now there is very, very little to do to this. I think just crop it and it should be about there. So what I'll do is just using the crop tool here. So I'm using this for video, so I'm going to use a specific ratio. So I'm going to use 16:9. And I think it is virtually there. Maybe move it slightly up in the frame, something like that. There we go. So with that done, I'll just click on OK. So there we have it. So by applying a few fairly basic photographic lighting techniques, it's possible to produce a very nice graduation across the surface of very shiny materials such as glass. And I think overall the whole effect has worked very well. Okay, well I hope you liked watching how I made that image, and if you like watching these sort of things, do click on the other images as they appear, and don't forget to subscribe. Oh, and click the like button. Thank you very much for watching.